In the archives of European court documents lies a case so bizarre that it inspired one of literature's most enduring tales. What began as political vanity in a Spanish royal court became something far more sinister, involving mass delusion, mysterious deaths, and evidence that suggests reality itself may have been manipulated by forces beyond human understanding. First, subscribe to never miss another investigation into the impossible. It was the spring of 1837 in the royal palace of Madrid, where King Ferdinand VII had recently passed, leaving behind a court still reeling from decades of political upheaval. The new regent, Queen Maria Cristina, found herself surrounded by courtiers desperate to secure their positions in an increasingly unstable monarchy. Among them was a mysterious figure who would soon plunge the entire court into madness. The man called himself Maestro Valdez, though palace records contain no documentation of his arrival or background. Court witnesses described him as tall and gaunt, with unusually pale skin that seemed to shimmer in candlelight. His eyes, according to multiple testimonies, appeared to shift color depending on the observer's angle, creating an unsettling effect that made direct eye contact nearly impossible. Valdez presented himself as a master tailor from the northern provinces, claiming to possess techniques passed down through generations of craftsmen. He spoke in a soft, measured tone that courtiers found oddly compelling, though many later reported feeling disoriented after conversations with him. His hands, witnesses noted, were extraordinarily long and moved with an almost serpentine grace while he worked. The first indication of something unusual occurred when Valdez approached the court's chamberlain with an extraordinary proposition. He claimed to have discovered a weaving technique that could create fabric visible only to those of noble blood and pure intentions. The cloth, he explained, would appear as the finest silk to worthy observers, but remain invisible to commoners and those harboring treacherous thoughts. Palace documents revealed that several courtiers were initially skeptical of these claims. However, Valdez had prepared a demonstration that would silence all doubts. He produced what appeared to be a small square of shimmering material that seemed to catch light when possible. Those who examined it closely reported seeing intricate patterns that shifted and changed, forming images that seemed to move independently of the fabric itself. The regent herself was summoned to witness this marvel. Queen Maria Cristina, according to her private secretary's detailed account, spent nearly an hour examining the sample. Her reaction was recorded as one of amazement, though the secretary noted that her hands trembled slightly as she handled the material. She immediately commissioned Valdez to create a complete ceremonial robe for the upcoming Easter celebrations. What followed was a period of intense activity within the palace workshops. Valdez was provided with the finest quarters and unlimited access to materials, though he insisted on working alone. Guards posted outside his chambers reported strange sounds emanating from within, including what one described as a rhythmic humming that seemed to come from multiple sources simultaneously. During this period, several disturbing incidents occurred throughout the palace. Servants reported finding their reflection absent from mirrors in the corridors near Valdez's workshop. Kitchen staff complained of food spoiling instantly when brought near the tailor's quarters. Most unsettling were the reports of courtiers experiencing vivid dreams featuring geometric patterns that moved and pulsed with their own inner light. The court physician, Dr. Herrera, documented a series of mysterious ailments that began affecting palace residents. Symptoms included temporary blindness, episodes of speaking in unknown languages, and an overwhelming compulsion to trace complex mathematical symbols in the air with their fingers. Herrera's notes, discovered in the royal archive centuries later, suggest he suspected some form of mass poisoning, though his tests revealed no known toxins. As the Easter celebration approached, anticipation reached fever pitch. Valdez announced that the robe was nearing completion and would be ready for the ceremony. However, he insisted that only those of the highest nobility would be permitted to view the garment before the public presentation. This restriction created an atmosphere of intense curiosity and competition among the courtiers. The night before the ceremony, a kitchen maid named Isabella Santos made a discovery that would forever change the historical record. While cleaning the corridors after midnight, she noticed an unusual glow emanating from beneath Valdez's workshop door. Curiosity overcoming caution, she peered through the keyhole and witnessed something that defied all explanation. According to her sworn testimony, given years later to church authorities, Santos observed Valdez standing motionless in the center of the room, surrounded by what appeared to be floating threads of light. These luminous strands moved independently, weaving themselves into patterns that hurt to observe directly. Most disturbing was Valdez himself, who appeared to be speaking to invisible presences, his lips moving in conversation with entities that cast shadows despite being unseen. Santos reported that the air in the corridor grew thick and oppressive, making breathing difficult. She described feeling as though unseen eyes were watching her, and the geometric patterns she glimpsed through the keyhole seemed to burn themselves into her vision. She fled immediately, but the images remained, causing her to suffer seizures and temporary blindness for months afterward. The Easter ceremony proceeded as planned, with the entire court assembled in the Great Hall. Valdez appeared before the gathered nobility, carrying what he claimed was the completed robe. His presentation was masterful, describing in elaborate detail the garment's construction and the rare techniques employed in its creation. He spoke of threads spun from morning mist and dyes extracted from flowers that bloomed only during lunar eclipses. As the ceremony progressed, a remarkable phenomenon occurred. One by one, the assembled courtiers began expressing admiration for the robe's beauty, describing intricate embroidery and lustrous fabric that seemed to capture and reflect light in extraordinary ways. Their descriptions became increasingly elaborate, with each observer adding new details about the garment's magnificence. However, contemporary documents reveal troubling inconsistencies in these accounts. While all witnesses agreed on the robe's exceptional beauty, their descriptions of specific details varied dramatically. Some spoke of golden threads forming celestial patterns, others described silver embroidery depicting scenes of historical battles. The colors mentioned ranged from deep royal blue to brilliant crimson, with no two accounts matching exactly. More disturbing still were the physical reactions observed during the ceremony. Several courtiers were seen swaying as if dizzy, while others appeared to be following invisible movements with their eyes. The court artist commissioned to create a record of the event later reported that his hands moved independently while sketching, creating images he had not consciously intended to draw. The ceremony reached its climax when the Queen herself was presented with the robe. According to multiple witnesses, she accepted the garment with obvious pleasure, praising its craftsmanship and beauty. However, the palace guards stationed around the hall provided accounts that contradicted the official record. These men, considered too low in station to appreciate the magical fabric, reported seeing the Queen mime the actions of handling clothing while her hands remained empty. The most chilling evidence emerged from the court's official portraitist, who had been commissioned to paint the ceremony. His canvas, discovered in the palace archives, shows the Queen and assembled courtiers in their ceremonial positions, but the space where the robe should appear contains only a void of absolute blackness. When examined under different lighting conditions, this dark area seems to shift and move, suggesting depths that cannot exist on a flat surface. Following the ceremony, Valdez vanished from the palace as mysteriously as he had arrived. His workshop was found completely empty, with no trace of materials or tools. The walls bore strange markings that palace scholars were unable to decipher, resembling no known language or mathematical notation. These symbols appeared to have been burned into the stone itself, though no evidence of fire was found. The aftermath of these events proved devastating for many involved. Within months, several courtiers who had praised the robe most enthusiastically began experiencing severe mental disturbances. They spoke of seeing the fabric in their dreams, describing how its patterns seemed to rearrange themselves into messages from otherworldly entities. Some claimed the robe continued to speak to them, revealing secrets about the nature of reality that human minds were not meant to comprehend. Dr. Herrera's final report, sealed in the royal archives until recently, documented the progressive deterioration of these affected individuals. They exhibited symptoms resembling what modern psychology might classify as shared psychotic episodes, but with disturbing consistencies that suggested external influence. All reported identical visions of vast geometric structures existing in spaces beyond normal perception, populated by beings of pure mathematical consciousness. The Queen herself began showing signs of distress within weeks of the ceremony. Her private correspondence, discovered during recent archival research, reveals growing paranoia about the robe's true nature. She wrote of feeling constantly watched by invisible presences and described nightmares in which the fabric revealed itself as a window into dimensions where human concepts of existence held no meaning. Perhaps most disturbing was the discovery made by palace maintenance workers months later. Hidden beneath floorboards in Valdez's former workshop, they found a collection of detailed drawings depicting the ceremony from impossible angles. The sketches showed the assembled courtiers from viewpoints that could not have existed within the physical space of the Great Hall, as if drawn by observers floating above or existing within the walls themselves. These drawings revealed details that no earthly witness could have observed. They showed the precise facial expressions of individuals whose backs were turned to any possible observer and depicted private gestures made by courtiers who believed themselves unobserved. Most unsettling were the annotations written in margins, describing the thoughts and emotions of the ceremony's participants with disturbing accuracy. The historical record becomes increasingly fragmented following these discoveries. Official court documents from the period show significant gaps, with entire months missing from the usual meticulous record-keeping. Those documents that survive often contain passages that appear to have been deliberately obscured, with key words and phrases rendered illegible through what appears to be intentional damage. Recent analysis of the palace's architectural plans revealed another disturbing detail. The room that served as Valdez's workshop does not appear in any of the original building blueprints. According to these historical documents, the space should have been solid stone, part of the palace's foundational wall. Yet multiple witnesses confirmed working in and visiting this room, describing its layout and features in consistent detail. The investigation into these anomalies has uncovered evidence suggesting that the entire episode may have been part of a larger phenomenon affecting European courts during this period. Similar incidents involving mysterious craftsmen and impossible textiles were reported in France, Prussia, and the Italian states. In each case, the events were followed by political upheaval and the mysterious disappearance of key witnesses. Modern researchers have attempted to trace the true identity of Maestro Valdez, but their efforts have yielded only more questions. No records of his birth, education, or previous employment exist in any known archives. The name itself appears to be fabricated, with no historical precedent in Spanish genealogical records. Most puzzling is the discovery of identical descriptions of a figure matching Valdez's appearance in documents spanning several centuries, suggesting either an impossible longevity or the involvement of multiple individuals sharing identical characteristics. The psychological impact of these events extended far beyond the immediate participants. Hans Christian Andersen, who visited the Spanish court several years later, heard whispered accounts of the ceremony from traumatized survivors. His famous tale, while presenting the events as a simple morality story about vanity and self-deception, contains subtle details that suggest he understood the true horror of what had occurred. Andersen's private journals, discovered in Danish archives, contain references to nightmares that plagued him for months after hearing these accounts. He wrote of dreams featuring impossible fabrics that revealed glimpses of realities beyond human perception, and of tailors who served masters existing in dimensions where human concepts of space and time held no meaning. The final piece of evidence emerged from an unexpected source. In 1993, renovation work at the Madrid Palace uncovered a sealed chamber behind what had been Valdez's workshop. Inside, investigators found a single piece of fabric unlike any known material. Scientific analysis revealed fibers that appeared to shift between different molecular structures depending on the angle of observation, defying all known principles of physics. This fabric sample, now stored in a classified government facility, continues to produce anomalous readings on all testing equipment. Researchers report that prolonged exposure to the material causes vivid hallucinations featuring geometric patterns that seem to communicate through direct neural interface. Several scientists have requested transfer away from the project, citing psychological distress and recurring nightmares. The implications of these discoveries extend far beyond historical curiosity. If the events in Madrid represent genuine contact with non-human intelligence, the psychological manipulation techniques employed suggest capabilities that dwarf human understanding. The ability to create shared delusions while leaving physical evidence of impossible phenomena indicates technologies or abilities that challenge fundamental assumptions about reality itself. Current investigations remain classified, but leaked documents suggest that similar materials have been discovered at other historical sites across Europe. Each discovery is accompanied by evidence of mass psychological manipulation and the presence of entities that exist partially outside normal space-time constraints. The pattern suggests a long-term study of human behavior by intelligences whose motives remain utterly alien to human comprehension. What disturbs researchers most is the possibility that these entities may still be active, conducting similar experiments on modern populations through methods we cannot yet detect or understand. The question remains whether the Emperor's New Clothes represents a simple tale of human folly or a warning about forces that continue to manipulate reality in ways that challenge our most basic understanding of existence. What do you think really happened in that Madrid palace, and could similar manipulations be occurring in our world today? Subscribe to explore more cases where documented history reveals glimpses of impossible realities.